My jungle will lure you in, with paths that are deceptively apparent and secrets that will never be uncovered. Silver starlight may show you the way, shape-shifting shadows will lead you astray. So open your eyes, I shall show you a world etched deep in my mind and free from your kind. Only the greatest explorers of the unknown, those who are willing to lose themselves, can unravel the enigma. For the essence of the jungle lies not in being found, but in getting lost. Welcome to Thorn's Jungle. Alright everyone, hope you've had a good week. I was going to put an episode out a bit earlier in the week, but a few bits and pieces came up, so sorry for the delay. This episode is going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Because I'm actually writing a book at the moment and talking about some of my wildlife adventures will sort of re-jog my memory in writing my book. So talking about this one adventure we did would definitely help jog my memory. And this adventure basically set the course for my on-screen career as a wildlife TV host. This is the first wildlife documentary I ever did. You know, as a kid, I was always obsessed with animals, always had such a passion for animals, like obsessed with them. You know, from the age of 3 or 4, I can remember, getting told off by teachers at school for reading a animal encyclopedia rather than a Roald Dahl novel. You know, I was always known as the animal man. And then something shifted when I got a little bit older. You know, I was working with animals. I was working as a field zoologist. I decided I want to do wildlife documentaries. I want to be on screen. I love talking about animals. I love adventure. I want to be a wildlife TV host. And I think it's important to look at yourself and look at what you want to be and who you want to be, and do as much possible in between to try and get there. So I think I had an image in my mind for my entire life of who I ultimately wanted to be and what I wanted to be. And throughout my life I took them steps to get there. And for me, that perfect image of who and what I wanted to be was like a wildlife adventurer, like Indiana Jones, but of the animal world, you know? And I don't think fake it till you make it comes into play. It's more be that hero character in your own sort of adventure movie and do what you can to get there. It's not faking it if it's who you are. You know, so have that image, that end goal of who and what you want to be, and become it. So you're becoming your perfect self, the person that your 5-year-old self would be proud of, you know. And this documentary, The Temple of the Viper, was the first step I made to getting there. And it was back in 2013. Again, I was working as a field zoologist, but also running my own business where I would go out to bushland areas that were about to be bulldozed to build houses, and I'll trap and relocate the animals to a safer area, more permanent bushland. And my grandparents gave all their grandkids $5,000 when they turned 16 to spend either on like a car or preferably like a trip somewhere, you know, an experience. And, you know, my sister went to London. My brother went, I don't know, he went snowboarding somewhere, I think. But I was 21 and I still hadn't used it, and I went, I'm going to use this to fund a documentary, you know. I didn't quite know what I was going to do the documentary on yet, I was sort of rattling my brain, and then randomly I got this image of this snake in my head that always fascinated me as a kid. I used to have this snake book when I was about 5 or 6, and there was an image of a temple viper in the book, and it was the most beautiful snake I've ever seen. Now, the temple viper is also known as, well, more commonly known as the Wagler's pit viper, Tropidolaemus wagleri. But it's called the temple viper purely because of this one temple in Penang. So I'm sitting there and I just randomly, that's what I do. I get thoughts in my head about an animal and I go, I want to learn more about it. And ultimately, you get to know a crap load about animals doing that. Every day I'm learning about new stuff. That's when you're, a wildlife guy, you always have to keep up. And so I'm looking at this, doing a bit more research into the temple viper, and there's this legend about this temple in Penang, which is an island off Malaysia. And this temple's infested with these temple vipers, these Wagler's pit vipers. And then straight away, I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do the documentary on. I already had a camera, a fairly decent digital SLR. But then I went and bought a bit more bits and pieces like microphones and just all your general gear. And then my next point of business was to find somebody to come with me. Obviously I'm not going to pay them with, this is just a self-funded amateur documentary. So I asked a few friends, I'll pay their airfares and accommodation. I asked a few friends and one of them was kind of interested. So I was like, all right, let's start looking at flights. But I was out working in the bush and I had my brother Scott with me. Because when you're working out there, the clients often require you to have 2 people for safety reasons. So I'd bring my brother out. I still do. And then I got a text message from my friend saying he couldn't come with me to Penang. So I was like, shit. Like, who's going to come film me? And Scott sitting next to me goes, I'll do it. I was like, really? Sweet. I mean, Scott's got an interest in animals as well. He's not an animal guy, but he certainly does have an interest. And it was perfect. I was like, sweet, let's do it. So we booked it, flew to Penang. And Penang's awesome. It's not very big, and it's sort of off the north part of peninsular Malaysia. As we're flying in, you could just see greenery. You could see palm trees. It's a beautiful airport. And we, I had to find a hotel that was sort of close to the jungle because the reason for me wanting to do this documentary, our sort of goal and story with the documentary was to basically figure out why and how all these vipers got to this temple. Why are they there? And also to see if we could find a temple viper in the jungle as well, because that could sort of help with the storyline of, they're coming from the jungle to the temple or, what's going on. So I had to find a hotel close to sort of a jungle access. We found a really nice, well, it wasn't nice. I mean, it was fine. And it was really close to the Penang National Park, so it was actually perfect. And, first day we get there, we're sort of figuring out, we found this wicked curry place across the road. Had the best butter chicken I've ever eaten, and Scott agrees with me. Scott's a really good cook, and he's really interested in cooking and all that, and he's still trying to find out, trying to match his butter chickens to see how close he can get it to that butter chicken we had in Penang. But yeah, so we go, all right, let's go out to the national park and, see how easy it is just to get into the jungle. So we get to the national park and it's full of tourists, it's full of litter, because most of these tourists, they just don't care about anything. They just throw their bottles around. I was like, we can't film here. This is bad. This isn't the jungle. So we sort of walk out of the entrance of the national park and walk maybe, a kilometre down the road. and we see this other road that leads up to this like kind of forestry station, I guess. We walk up there and there's no one there. No one's there, there's no tourists. There was a few people swimming in this kind of river thing at the front, but there was this path, this like little, I mean, it really wasn't a path, it was just like almost a game trail that led up the hill right into the jungle. And we walk up there and it was the perfect entrance to the jungle. You know, there was no one there. No one would walk up this path and go there. Because the path at the top kind of stopped and then you're just bush bashing through jungle. So this was our perfect entrance into the jungle. This is where we'd be doing the majority of the filming, sort of away from the snake temple. So we film a few bits and pieces, get some pretty good footage, you know. Go back to the hotel. We're going through the footage and it's fucked. The footage is like so pixelated it's completely unusable. And this is because the jungle's a dark place. And when you're filming in a dark place, your natural instinct is to turn the ISO on the camera right up. So it brightens everything. But this is a mistake because when you brighten the ISO in a dark place, you get what's called artifacts. So it just looks like little pixels flickering around everywhere. So we're like, oh man, this is bad. And I could see Scott was disappointed because, I mean, he's not a professional cameraman. He knows, he's a very intelligent person and he knows his stuff, but he's not a professional cameraman. So I could see he was disappointed with himself, but it's not his fault. So we spent the rest of the day sort of trying to figure out how to get the best settings for this camera. And yeah, we did. We went back walking through the jungle, and what we'd do is we'd get a taxi to that forestry centre, walk out. We didn't have a GPS or nothing, just a compass, but we'd walk straight out into the jungle for the day and then basically take our bearings on the compass and then make our way back, you know. And when you're walking 8, 10, 12 hours in the jungle, it wears you out, hey? Like, you would be lucky to clear, you know, half a kilometre to a kilometre in an hour or two, because it's hard going. It's so thick. And, you know, we're finding some cool stuff, getting some cool segments. You know, I'll catch a skink. But basically what I found with wildlife, doing wildlife documentaries, you have a goal animal. So get that first. Find that animal first, and then you can sort of relax a little bit, and then do all the in-between shots, like the intros and catching other animals in between. But, you know, I caught a few skinks. We had organised to go to the Snake Temple a couple of days later, but because that's the good thing about this documentary was we didn't have to go out necessarily and look for the animal, because apparently they're infesting this temple. So they're always going to be there, so we could have relaxed a little bit, but then I did want this other segment where we found a temple viper in the actual jungle. So we got some cool segments, some skinks. I remember one day we were out there and it just started belting down with rain. Probably one of the most heaviest rains I've ever been in. Like, so you could barely see in front of you, it was that heavy. And there was this like abandoned, sort of smashed up like electric room or something. I don't know what it was, but it was just basically 4 concrete slabs that made a little cubicle just out in the middle of the jungle that, you know, the roof was kind of collapsed in, something like that. And we sort of took shelter under there from the rain. I mean, we're already soaking wet, but we've got all the equipment and stuff, so we didn't really want to get that soaked. And we're standing there and we can see this little thing plodding along the floor. Well, what the hell is that? So we run out there, and it's a spiny hill turtle, also known as a cogwheel turtle. They got a bunch of names, but they're a turtle that their shell is really cool. It's like spiked, like a ninja star, and it was really cool. So we got a wicked segment on that, and later we actually found another one, and it turns out that these turtles come out in the rain to mate with each other. So that's what they were doing. That's why we found a couple of them that day. It's because they wanted to have a bit of a root, which in Australia means to mate. So that was a cool segment, and the rain was really cool. You know, they're gap fillers in a documentary. So maybe they go for a couple of minutes, but they're to ultimately fill up time. You know, whether or not you want the documentary to be half an hour or 50 minutes, an hour, whatever. Right, so now it's time to go to the snake temple. This is maybe a few days later. And we get in the taxi, and the snake temple is probably about an hour away from our hotel. And I've seen photos of this place, but mainly just the inside. And we're on this big highway, you know, this like 4-lane highway. And there's like a strip mall kind of thing. Not even. It's like a little like shoulder of the road that was just kind of had a few like not cafes, but like hawker stalls, you know, selling food. One little stall selling like teddy bears and toys, and the taxi pulls in there. I'm like, oh, maybe he needs to refill on petrol or something, but no, he's like, yeah, this is a snake temple. I'm like, what? It's like right on the side of the bloody road, on the side of a highway, and yeah, there it is. There's this massive concrete staircase, and there's the temple sitting at the top. And this temple isn't what you would think. It's not like an Indiana Jones jungly temple ruins kind of thing. It looks like a, you know, extravagant Chinese restaurant, essentially. It's painted red, it's got the gold dragons, it's got like the pillars out the front, and it just looks like a Chinese restaurant. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, with the hanging lanterns and stuff. And so we walk up there, and there's a few Chinese tourists and worshippers, which was good to see, because I hate tourists. I hate them. I'll avoid them at all costs. I've never been on a tour in my life. I just go out there and do it myself. I'll never do a jungle tour. I'll just go, I'm out there by myself. So we walk in, and it's not very well lit, but I could instantly make out the shape of a snake just hanging there from this, looked almost like a wooden chandelier, but with no lights or anything. Just, and immediately when I saw the first one, all the other ones started coming out the woodwork, and we're surrounded by vipers. And I'm like, no way, that is, like, I was like a kid in a candy store, you know? Walking around going, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. It was amazing. Such a weird thing to see. You walk into a temple and there are venomous vipers within a few inches of you. They're hanging on the urns. They're, you know, wrapped around a candlestick, hanging from the ceiling. So I'm like, oh, get the camera out, start filming. I start doing some talking scenes. A few scenes where, a few shots of me walking into the temple. Few close-ups of the viper, and then this little old lady comes up, and she doesn't speak a word of English. How dare she not speak English in her own country? Which is predominantly Chinese speaking, Malay speaking. Nah, I'm joking. We you know, that's up to us to learn their language if we're going to try and communicate with them. She's like trying to ask us what we're doing, and I thought it'd be a good idea to go, oh, we're from a production company, like working for National Geographic or something like that. Turns out it's not, because that means they want money. You know, if we just went in there and didn't say a word and just said, oh, we're just filming for the sake of it, we would have been fine. But she's getting a bit grumpy with us. She's asking for money and stuff. And then this young boy comes out that I think works there as well. Well, I'm assuming he does. He walks out. He's probably only like 15, if that. And he's cool to us, you know. He sort of talks to her, and she's kind of wanders off. And he takes us into this other room, and this other room's got like even more vipers in it. There's some in tanks. I think there was even a Burmese python or two in a big tank. but there was, other snakes hanging around, and there was a door out to a garden area. And me and Scott are sort of just having, filming stuff. And the kid's like, "Oh, do you want to hold one?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. Hell yeah, I do." So he's like, "All right." Walks off, comes back, holding this bloody viper, just like you would a tame python. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's just free handling this viper. And he just, here you go. So I'm like, all right, grab this thing. Now, these temple vipers are toxically venomous, and a bite will put you in hospital for a few days at least. Could cause, your muscles to basically eat away. You can get necrosis. Like, a bite from one of these vipers, I think they got mycotoxin and stuff. I'm not sure if there's a hemotoxin in there, but it'll ruin your day or two. They're not to be messed with. So I'm holding this thing, and it's got its head up, just sitting on my arm. It's licking my arm and stuff. I'm like, this is insane. And a lot of people ask me, were they defanged or were their venom glands taken out? Now, when a venomous snake's venom glands are taken out, they're called venomoids. But the thing is, with pit vipers and vipers, they got massive venom glands, and you can see their heads are bulging, and that's because the back of their head's like their venom glands. And you can tell if their venom glands are taken out because there's a massive suppression on either side of their head, like indentation. Their head basically like concaves because the venom glands are taken out. There's no, structural integrity in their head anymore with the venom glands gone. So you could tell. And also, they can take their fangs out. They can pull their fangs out, but the fangs do grow back. And I'll tell you what, they had their venom glands and they had their fangs. We saw one of them yawn, and oh yeah, it had fangs. So this was a full weaponized viper that I'm holding. And some vipers are more chilled out than others. Some are a bit more reluctant to bite than others. But at the end of the day, it's still a viper. And there was probably 200 of them at this temple just hanging around. As we're filming, and I'm holding this viper, right next to my foot is one sitting under a bloody, like a roof tile, just sitting there. Far out. This is this is a very strange experience, All my life training to handle snakes, venomous snakes, this just goes against everything that all my experiences and training, just free handling a viper. And then we were walking around and picking up other ones, and we got wicked footage. There was this big garden area, and this vipers are hanging out in this garden area. And this temple's an old temple, and the legend is that a monk came and made it like a refuge for these vipers from the surrounding jungle, something like that. Anyway, we got wicked footage, and we're like, all right, we got enough, we'll leave. We walked out, and there was like a little cafe next door, and we're sitting there. I'm having a Diet Coke, Scott's probably having a beer. I don't think I'd actually drank that much on this trip. Normally I'd drink, but this trip I didn't. I don't think I was smoking either. But yeah, we're sitting at this cafe, and man, there's like a pot plant next to us, and there's two vipers sitting it, like outside the temple, a little bit down the road. They're making their way out to the cafes. It's an extraordinary thing to see. And as we come out onto the road to get into the taxi, there's an injured viper crossing the road, heading towards the cafes. And the shop workers come out with a dustpan and broom and just brush it up into a pan and just put it in the bin. I mean, this thing's still alive. I mean, had a fatal injury. It was going to die. But I was like, oh, come on, you gotta, do the right thing and put this thing out of its misery. Just give it a bonk on the head, or, cut its head off. Just get it out of its misery. But nah, straight in the bin. So, oh, far out. This place is extraordinary. So, when we go back to the hotel after this, we go through the footage. Footage is great. It's like, you get this sense of, we can breathe now. We got the meat and potatoes of the documentary. We got the important bit. The most important bit was the snake temple. And what's cool about when I do these documentaries, like, we're not on a full tight schedule. I mean, we are, because we only have like maybe 2 weeks at a certain place, but we definitely have playtime. You know, we can go down to the markets, we can go, go to the shops, maybe go for a swim. Well, especially on this one. On other ones, it's been like there hasn't been shops, and we're like basically in a tiny little town where there isn't anything to buy. But on this occasion, it was pretty cool. So, most of the other days were spent out in the jungle, getting footage, looking for a wild temple viper. And we found like a wicked cave that was just like a cave basically you see on cartoons, where it's just like a hole, like a tunnel. And we walked down there and there was water. It was pretty cool, but it was dodgy as well, because we'd be walking and all of a sudden the floor would just collapse away from you and your foot would just go straight down, because there's a cave down there that you don't know about, and sort of rocks and debris has built up on top, and it just looks like terra firma. It just looks like the ground, the jungle floor. But you could fall and just disappear into the floor of the jungle, and you'll never ever get found, no matter what. They ain't finding you. So that was pretty scary, eh? Oh yeah, that's right. The monitor lizard. I caught a big water monitor, Varanus salvator, and they're like this. They're the second biggest lizard in the world. They get to about 2.5 meters long, and pretty damn heavy. And we're walking down this part of the jungle that was sort of bordering on the beach, and I saw this monitor lizard because I wanted to catch one. That was a goal of mine, was to catch one for the camera. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, damn, that thing's huge. This thing was about 8 foot long, hey, and it was built like a brick shithouse, hey. It was a tank. And it starts running, and I'm running after it. And as I'm running, I'm going, this thing's gonna absolutely destroy me. Like, I can't jump on this bloody thing. This thing's bigger than I am. This thing's gonna mess me up. Like, what am I doing? So it got away, and I'm kind of pleased, because once I grab a hold of that tail, that thing's spinning around to give me a good bite, and that thing will like take a pound of flesh right off me, like in one bite, and that's not including the claws that it's going to use. So yeah, that one got away. And then as we're walking, we see a smaller one. It was maybe 5 foot, maybe 5.5. I'm like, perfect, I can get this one. I strap the GoPro to my head. Scott's filming from a distance. I run after this thing, jump on it. It was a wicked scene. I was so glad I've got that water monitor scene, because that's what I wanted. When making these documentaries, you get the meat and potatoes of it, which are the main quest animal you're after, and whatever makes up that storyline. And then in between, you always have animals in mind that you really want to catch for camera. And water monitor was definitely on there. And yeah, so after that, like, we're spending more days in the jungle. We slept in the cave. And in the morning found a baby temple viper. It was only maybe a week old, sitting on a sapling. I was like, sick, this is a wild temple viper, awesome. We got that footage, that was really cool footage. And then we found a sort of sub-adult temple viper as well. So basically we've got everything we need. Now we can relax and just do the in-between shots. You get B-roll. B-roll is shots of like close-ups of plants or your feet walking, just things that you can put in between to fill gaps and sort of fill the storyline. Stock footage of animals, scenery shots, things like that. And another thing I really wanted to film was a pitcher plant. Pitcher plants are carnivorous plants, and they're awesome. They got like cups on them, like jugs, and animals will crawl in and fall down, and then the plant essentially eats it. The breaks them down over time, and there's certain enzymes in that pitcher that break them down. They're called monkey cups as well in Southeast Asia, because you'll see monkeys come up to them, and because they've collected water in these cups, the monkeys will sit there and have a drink out of them. So they're pretty cool, and I really wanted to film one, but we couldn't find one. It's like, God damn, I really wanted to film one. And we ended up going to this botanical garden place because we wanted to get some cool, I guess, I don't actually know why we went there. I think we're just killing time and may as well. We might see some cool landscape shots and stuff. But they had like a little nursery there, and they sold pitcher plants. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I buy pitcher plants in a pot and everything. We go have a drink at the cafe there. I'm having a coconut drink, and the bloody monkeys are going feral there. They're basically trying to rob the cafe. You know, that's what they do. They're running in, causing a ruckus. Anyway, so I've got this pitcher plant. We get in the taxi, drive out to the jungle, and I plant it in the jungle. And hey, on camera, I found a pitcher plant. You know, we don't often do that kind of thing. We have caught animals and then bagged them and then taken them back to film, you know, when you're a bit more prepared and stuff, or like you catch it and then go, all right, come over here, then re-catch it on camera, because sometimes you're walking and you don't have the camera switched on recording 24/7. So you could be walking and bang, there's a snake. You run over and grab it, and then the camera's not ready, so then you let it go. All right, you're ready, you're filming, then run. But, you know, most wildlife shows this is something we've never really done, you know, but most wildlife shows will go out there and get people that work at reptile parks or zoos and stuff, and then they'll bring out the animals for them, and then they'll pretend to catch them. The good thing about these documentaries that I did, well, the self-funded ones that I produced and hosted and that, they were as real as you could ever get, you know, compared to other wildlife TV shows. Yeah, so that was the only one we were kind of like, screw it, let's just plant it, say we found it. But yeah, like, just trying to think, other cool, we found giant mud skippers, which was awesome. Penang's a cool place. I'd really love to go back there. It's like, I think it's kind of underrated. You know, there's not a lot to do, I guess. It's not like you go to Bali and there's bars and restaurants and stuff. It's not really like that. It's, but I would love to go back just because that was sort of the birthplace of my TV career. And this was the first documentary I did that led up ultimately to me filming, doing Kings of Pain, which was for network television, for network TV. And this was the first of 4 full-length documentaries I did that was fully self-funded by myself. And we ended up going to, and what I'm going to do is in other episodes I'll be talking about other documentaries I did and sort of the behind the scenes of them. One, you know, Borneo, India, Peninsula Malaysia. So I just thought you'd like to know how I kind of got into it. And I got into it purely from just getting out there and doing it myself. And coming back with all the footage from... we got attacked by monkeys as well, which isn't a first for me. I always get attacked by monkeys. They steal stuff from you and then go for you. And so, we got attacked by monkeys too, which was pretty funny. It's always a laugh, but monkeys, you don't want to mess with them. I mean, these are long-tailed macaques. They weigh like, 20, 30 kilos. They're big. They're like the size of a medium-sized dog. But all the footage we got, I took back home, and like, I've never edited anything in my life. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I put all the footage onto the computer. I think I was using Movie Maker or something, just the default program that came with your Mac. And there were certain things I couldn't do, like I couldn't do a cutaway where you're talking and then you put a bit of like a close up of the snake as you're talking on top. Just things like that you couldn't do. So I'd edited quite a bit of it, and I'm like, this just isn't working, eh? And the voiceovers, like with this I guess version of Movie Maker, when I was talking, doing my voiceover, the background sound was going down. So I didn't want that. Then finally I got downloaded, and I'm doing quote unquote legally, Final Cut, and it was awesome. And that's what I use for all my other documentaries was Final Cut. And I'll tell you what, like I don't want to toot my own horn, but I got pretty good at editing. You know, for someone that has never edited a thing in their life, it looked pretty good. And I was really happy with it. So happy with it, actually. And then for another 2 documentaries, Scott came out and filmed the other 2 with me, and I'll talk about them in a later podcast. But that's how my on-screen wildlife TV host career sort of started. And you know, from going from there to, I did Temple of the Viper, then I did the Bearcat of Borneo, then I did the Last King of India, and then I did the Tale of the Tapir. Actually, how many have I done? Temple of the Viper, Bearcat of Borneo, Tale of the Tapir, and Last King of India. So I did 4 full-length ones. Scott wasn't with me on the India one. That is going to be a long-ass podcast. That was insane. I can't wait to talk about that one. But yeah, Scott was cool. He loves it as well. So it's cool having him there, and he knows what's going on when we go out there now. But yeah, so that led me to Kings of Pain. Ultimately, if I didn't do these documentaries, I wouldn't have gotten noticed with production companies and TV networks. So that's how you get into these sort of things. If you want to be something and someone and have a dream, just go out and do it. And then the rewards and the more opportunities will come later. You're not just going to get a phone call from a TV network saying, oh, we want you on a show. Because they don't know what you look like on camera. They don't know what you're going to be like. And I sucked on camera in these documentaries. I was so robotic. I was so, trying to be the typical host, TV host. And it was kind of boring. Because when I started doing Tale of the Tapir and The Last King of India, which was about Asiatic lions, I was started to be more myself, and it was way more relatable, way more easy to watch. You know, I was funny, it was jokes. And then when I did Kings of Pain, it was even better because they were like, no, we just want you to be yourself. Just talk normally like you would talking to a mate, you know, a friend. So that was the key thing that I learned, was just be yourself and just talk shit. Do what you normally would. Don't talk to the camera like you're reading from a teleprompter. And yeah, it was a really good bit of, like an eye-opener. But yeah, you can watch the full length of Temple of the Viper on YouTube. Just YouTube Temple of the Viper or YouTube Wild Mysteries. Like, search that. And you can watch the full length on there. Oh yeah, and I've got long hair in it too. I've got hair like down to my belly button, and it's ponytailed. So I look a lot different than I do now. And then the other 3 documentaries that we did later, I obviously got a haircut and stuff, but at that point in time I hadn't had a haircut in over 10 years, and it's noticeable. But yeah, that, like, the advice I can give to anyone out there that wants to, doesn't necessarily have to be wildlife stuff. I mean, I put in the hard yards with wildlife. I've been researching and reading about wildlife since I was 4 years old. I would go out there and catch snakes. I was obsessed with them. That's all I thought about for 31 years of my life. And because I'm 31 now, I all I thought about was animals. I would feel guilty if I thought about something else. If I thought about, getting into bodybuilding or something because I went through a gym phase, I would feel guilty that I was taking a little chunk of my thought about animals and putting it into something else. I'd feel guilty. And then, throughout my whole life, I've always worked with animals. So the next step was I wanted to teach people about animals on camera. And that's what I'm doing, and hopefully I can do it until I die. And if I never get another TV show, I will continue to make these self-funded documentaries because I love doing them. And that's a big thing with it, is you got to love it. Otherwise, it looks like people will notice that on screen. If you don't love what you're doing, they'll know. If you look passionate and so interested, every animal I catch on camera, I'm like, oh fuck, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, even if it's a tiny little skink. So that passion does come through with everything you do. And I mean, if you want to be a rock star, you can be a rock star. You just got to have that ultimate goal and then fill in the gaps in between of how you get there. And every little thing counts. I found social media was awesome with me. I mean, most of the production companies that, I was getting maybe 2 or 3 production companies a week emailing me. And that they'd found me on Instagram. But to get the content for my Instagram, for these production companies to see, were from these wildlife documentaries and the work that I was doing with wildlife. So if I didn't have the content there on social media, I wouldn't have had the production companies notice me. If I didn't do these documentaries and work with animals since the day I was basically walking, so everything comes into play. Everything's like a tree. It just branches out. Everything you do will affect your ultimate goal. So just make sure you're always going in that direction. Whether it be posting a photo a week on Instagram or doing a little YouTube video, just something, just to get out there and do it. If you want to be a bloody, if you want to be a wrestler, start wrestling, start in the backyard, start smashing each other in the backyard. Then, go to a wrestling school and beat people up there, and, everything's a process. And I was so lucky that I knew what I wanted to do since I was 4 years old. I always wanted to be this. I always wanted to be where I am now. And I'm lucky because there are people out there that, there are people that live their entire lives and don't know what they wanted to be or what they wanted to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually quite normal. It isn't normal to know exactly what you're going to be since the age of 4, and now you're 31 and you're there. Like, that's what you are. That's actually super rare. But you can take this and use it in everyday life. Whether it be your job, if you want to be better at your job, you want to move higher in your job. Every little thing counts. Just make sure you're always on track. And my advice to you is, be that person you know you are, and be that person you want to be. Be the ultimate you. I'm went into a bit of a motivational speech there, but that's what it comes down to. The human potential's there. You just got to grab it. The world is yours. Take it. It's up for grabs. It's your world. Everyone else is just in it. Make that world work for you. People can fail at a job they hate doing. So do something you love, and if you fail, at least you fail doing something you love. That's what it's all about. All right. Anyway, watch the documentary, The Temple of the Viper. It's pretty good for an amateur first attempt. All right. I'm not going to leave it this long in between podcasts. It was over a week, and I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I was preoccupied writing the book, and so stay tuned and have an awesome weekend. Woohoo! It's a cheat day for me, so I get to shove probably 5 kilos of junk food down my dirty neck. That's what I do. I look forward to my cheat days. I go to the gym all week. diet during the week, and then the weekend is a free-for-all, and it's grotesque the amount of food and calories I put into my body on the weekend. So whatever makes you guys happy on the weekend, do it, and I'll see you next time on the next episode of Thorn's Jungle. Take it easy, everyone.